Today we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk about our overall health. And the first thing I'm going to say is I am not a doctor, health practitioner, or anything like that. I'm just a guy who learned the hard way about the dangers of acidity from sugar, a poor diet, alcohol consumption, just living the way they want us to live in America. And to start my life, I was pretty athletic. And all of a sudden, in my early 30s, I started gaining weight. From that, it turned into kidney stones. From kidney stones, gout, then acid reflux, developing horrible digestive problems and gallstones and a fatty liver. And then finally being told I was pre-diabetic. I wasn't even 40 yet. And when I say pain, everything hurt.
Pain.
And it wound up, after going to neurologists with kidney stones and all of this stuff, that I did a little research and found acidity from sugar consumption, soft drinks, alcohol consumption, and the standard American diet leads to horrible acidity and all these problems I was having. And the funny thing is, I remembered back to when I was in swimming pools. Not only did I build them and service them, but I also did a lot of water testing for customers when they would come in. I worked the water testing station. And the most crucial thing to maintaining proper water chemistry, pH and alkalinity, the integrity of both, are crucial for clean water. And our body is 70% water. So I looked into this further, and I had remembered that one of my teachers going through this had told me the way to increase a pool of water's pH and alkalinity is through soda ash, which is just baking soda. But also in going through this, I had learned what damage acidity can actually do to not only the surface of the pool, but the metal components. It will liquefy them. It will actually, leach plaster out and burn it. Acidity is horribly corrosive.
Low pH means your water is acidic, and acidic water can corrode your pool equipment, wear down your liner, erode metal and concrete, and prevent your sanitizer from working properly.
The goal in a body of water in a swimming pool is to maintain neutral pH, as well as the same of the body of water, which is your body.
Your pH should be between 7.4 and 7.6. Your pH levels also go hand in hand with total alkalinity. Total alkalinity is what keeps your pH level stable. Without alkalinity as a buffer, your pH would wildly fluctuate. So keeping your total alkalinity in range is important to help balance the pH in your water. Okay, here's how to raise your pH. Adding pH increaser to your water is a quick, easy way to raise your levels, and it's easy to find at most pool stores. But the cheaper alternative is soda ash. Soda ash and pH increaser have the same active ingredient, sodium carbonate. But you can often find soda ash for much cheaper at your local home improvement store. It's the same chemical, just packaged differently. So here's how to raise your pH levels with soda ash. Keep in mind that while soda ash raises your pH levels, it also slightly increases your alkalinity. Now what about baking soda? Can you use that to raise your pH? Baking soda, aka sodium bicarbonate, is sold in pool stores as alkalinity increaser. Adding baking soda to your water will definitely raise your pH, but it will also significantly raise your alkalinity more than soda ash.
And I began consuming sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, in a glass of water daily, and healed myself.
Welcome everyone, Dr. Mandel here. Today I'm going to share some health benefits of baking soda. There are many things that you could be doing at home, naturally, non-invasively, to help your body repair and heal. Baking soda is also known as sodium bicarbonate. We think it's baking soda for baking, but you're going to be shocked the positive benefits that you can gain by using this for your health. When it comes to heartburn, This baking soda can do wonders for you. This sodium bicarbonate will neutralize the stomach acid, particularly if you're having that reflux from overeating, stress, or eating greasy or spicy foods. Dissolving 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of baking soda in a glass of water can be very productive in correcting that acid reflux.
So today I want to actually discuss uric acid and how you could detoxify uric acid from your kidneys and from your body. Now, if you're susceptible to getting uric acid kidney stones or gout, there's a couple things you need to realize. Maybe you need to increase your vegetables. Take something called sodium bicarbonate, which is baking soda, a real simple solution. You take a teaspoon, not heaping, in 12 ounces of water, dissolve it, drink it in your fasting state, maybe right before you go to bed. But don't drink it right when you're eating, because that will neutralize the stomach acid and it might be harder to digest. So to recap, these two remedies are more for symptomatic relief, so that way your pH can be correct.
And many of these cults that rule the world, these Luciferian elite cults, know this and practice this. I was visiting a friend of mine from grade school and was crashing over at his house a decade or so ago when I just started with the baking soda practice, and it was performing miracles on my body, from getting rid of my kidney stones, my gout, curing my pain, and the early onset aging, my wrinkles disappearing, my mobility improving, just everything. I felt 10 to 15 years younger. And I was telling them this. Now, during this conversation, they also brought up how my friend's wife, who was present, was raised in a cult. And they didn't know, they just knew they were weird. They knew it was cultish and something was going on. Anyway, getting back to the baking soda, we were going to bed and I said, all right, I'm getting my baking soda. I told them all about it. And she goes, I want to try it. So I made her a glass. Brought in 2 glasses, one for me, one for her. She takes 1 sip, hands it to her husband in disgust and said, that's what they used to make me drink every night before bed when I was a child. They know this. And for the rest of us, it's to consume sugar and acidity and die early, while they do this in secret, consuming the right salts and living a longer, healthier life. Another story I remember is, as I was going through this and learning this and implementing it, I spoke to an old friend on the phone, an old colleague from work, and I told her, look, I'm doing baking soda. It offsets, my acidity, and if I have heartburn or anything like that, you just burp it right up harmlessly, and the pain of heartburn goes away. And she goes, oh, wow. I remember, she says, you're absolutely right. My grandmother would be over the house and say, oh, the heartburn, and would ask for the bicarbon, for the sodium bicarbonate. The baking soda would slam some down, burp it up, and be fine. This is something that we used to know, and some circles obviously still do. And the last story I remember, just into college and at a keg party and talking to a kid, and he's telling me how he wrote a paper to a common professor that we had that was a big drinker, loved his wine and stuff like that. And he wrote a paper based on how when you consume alcohol, your body loses salt. And I did my research. I can't find anything on that about that now. But back then, apparently he found enough in his research and knew enough at that age, probably taught by his parents, they were in the know, but he knew and found enough documentation to justify a paper that when you consume alcohol, because it's so acidic, your body loses salt. It's funny when the history of mine with swimming pools to keg party conversations come full circle. They literally give us processed salt as table salt when natural salts are wonderful for you. And they tell you not to consume salt, that it's dangerous. Well, of course it is. They're talking about table salt. Listen.
Salty diets are leading to health complications around the globe, and the World Health Organization says a massive effort is needed to reduce salt intake. The agency had called for an overall effort to reduce sodium consumption by 30%. 5% by 2025, which says it won't happen to meet that deadline without drastic change. A new WHO report shows unhealthy diets a leading cause of death and disease globally. The average person should consume no more than about 5 grams. It's 1 teaspoon of salt per day. However, the global average is estimated to be more than double that. Well, we're joined now by Dr. Christopher Labos. He's an epidemiologist and cardiologist, and he joins us from Montreal. Yeah, cardiology important in all this as we look forward. Dr. Labos, thanks for joining us. Let's talk about why are we so off from hitting this target?
It's because we love salt. Salt makes food taste better. That's the reason why we use it. If you go back to prehistoric times, there was very little salt in our diet. So we have evolved as humans with 2 very important mechanisms. One, we have taste buds that make us crave salt, and we have kidneys that are very, very efficient at holding on to salt. So whatever salt you take in, your body is going to use before it's ultimately excreted by your kidneys, which was fine when we were a hunter-gatherer society and our food had very little salt in it. But now that we eat a lot of pre-processed food, we consume a lot of salt, far more than we need for basic biological functions. And that has, as a consequence, the fact that it increases our blood pressure. It makes us retain water, which is not a great thing if you have other medical issues. And when you have higher blood pressure, that leads to more heart disease, more stroke, more kidney failure. So there are a lot of problems that come with eating salt. And people who have very salty, very unhealthy diets are at risk for all these things, which is why you're seeing the WHO issuing this report. And this is not just a problem for the developing world. You can go to many parts of the world, especially many rural areas, where salt intake is very high. Rural China is a prime example, where it causes a significant burden of disease. And if we could reduce that, if we could get people to eat less salt, we would go a long way to preventing a lot of the medical complications that people suffer from.
Okay, so you presented the problem there. As human beings, we need salt, as all animals do, but too much seems to be, we're getting it in that processed food, even though you think, well, I just put a pinch of salt on here. We're getting it in sauces, we're getting it in food we order in, we're getting it in restaurants. So the challenge is then, how do we reduce the amount of salt we use in everyday life?
It's going to be very hard because about 5% of the salt you eat is the salt that's normally present in food. About 15% is what you add yourself during your cooking or at your dinner table. But 80% of the salt that you eat is added to your food by other people. So it's in restaurant food, takeout, prepackaged food, processed food that you're buying at the supermarket. And that's really, really where we have to target our interventions, in the same way that, a series of legislative steps were taken to get trans fats out of food. We're going to have to do more or less the same thing to get rid of salt from various food products. And some steps have already been taken. A lot of soups now advertise the fact that they are salt-free or low in salt, so they've really reduced the amount of salt that's in there. And we're going to have to do that because you, to a very large degree, don't have much control over the food that other people are adding to your stuff. The only thing that you can do is cook at home. If you cook at home, you will invariably be healthier because you will consume not only less salt, but also less sugar and a lot of other stuff that is really, really unhealthy in your diet.
Okay, I want to talk about something else as well, but just before we leave this topic, just the WHO, World Health Organization, saying that if we were to meet this goal of lower salt intake around the world, it could save an estimated 7 million lives globally by 2030. So some stark numbers there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't realize how prevalent this problem is and how much of a huge impact it could actually have.
This poison salt has a horrible effect on your health and kills us all early. If you're consuming the right salt, it's absolutely essential and it's wonderful for your body. As a matter of fact, if you listen to Barbara O'Neill here, which I'm going to play momentarily, she tells you sodium is the third most important thing to support life in the human body, to prolong your life and keep you alive. It's the third essential element you need after oxygen and water is sodium. The right salts. Pay close attention to this woman, Barbara O'Neill, who knows what she's talking about, and she gets into the most important elements for human life and just how crucial salt is, the right salt at the cellular level for hydration and mineral absorption.
Water, the second most vital element needed for life. So the number one vital element needed for life is oxygen. And that's not a surprise, is it? The second most vital element needed for life is water. You can go 3 minutes without oxygen. You can go a couple of weeks without water. I always say to people, how much water do you drink? And these are some of the answers. I don't like water. If I drink water, my feet swell. If I drink water, I'm going to the bathroom all day. Those last two answers tell me that the water's not getting inside the cell. So how do we get the water inside the cell? We have to go to the third most vital element needed for life, and that is sodium. The fourth most vital element needed for life is potassium. So let's go back to sodium. In nature, we find the highest amount of sodium in seawater, and seawater contains 92 minerals. Of those 92 minerals, 30%, approximately 30% is sodium, and of those 92 minerals, approximately 50% is chloride. Now, because sodium chloride take up the most amount, they're the first crystals formed when the water is evaporated. So what man does is he scoops up the first crystals formed, he bleaches them white, puts aluminium with it so that it runs freely, and there's your table salt. Table salt is a dangerous salt because we now have two very harsh minerals that if you were to inject both of those into the blood, you would die. There's two harsh minerals and they need all the other 90 to soften them and balance them. The highest concentration of mineral inside the cell is potassium. The highest concentration outside the cell is sodium. And in this bilayered membrane that is around every cell, there are sodium-potassium pumps. And these sodium-potassium pumps are ever going like this, maintaining the balance between potassium and sodium. But when someone's not eating enough fruits and vegetables, and that's where you get most of your potassium, and they're putting table salt on everything far too much, what happens now is sodium levels rise and potassium levels drop. There is a small amount of sodium in the cell, but when this happens, you see osmosis and diffusion happens when the highest concentration merges into the lowest. So now sodium levels inside the cell are rising, which they should not, and the cell swells. What's that called? High blood pressure. The doctor is right. Table salt will contribute to high blood pressure. There's a French doctor named Dr. Lelangre, and he's written a whole book on salt. He said, when people come to me with high blood pressure, I put them on Celtic salt. Why does he put them on Celtic salt? Because Celtic salt contains 82 minerals. It's a hand-harvested sea salt. So the minerals are in the Celtic salt in their balanced form. What about Himalayan salt? In many places, Himalayan salt is a lot easy to get. There's about 75 minerals. So it's pretty good. But I prefer the Celtic salt. And one reason is that the Celtic salt has 3 magnesiums. It contains magnesium chloride and magnesium bromide and magnesium sulfate. Magnesium is a water-hungry molecule, and this explains why the Celtic salt is such a moist salt, especially when we've had a lot of rain, because those 3 magnesiums absorb the moisture. And because magnesium is a water-hungry molecule, it can be used to help the water get into the cell. So when you take a crystal of Celtic salt, put it on your tongue, and some say, how big's a crystal? Well, if you've got high blood pressure, start small, about the size of a sesame seed. I don't have high blood pressure, so I might have about 3 times little sesame seeds. Put it on your tongue, your mucous membranes start absorbing the minerals. The magnesium is taken to the cell membrane and you drink your water, and that magnesium pulls that water inside the cell. It's the quickest way to hydrate a body. The only time excess water drinking can be dangerous is if people drink too much at once and don't have the minerals that are in the Celtic salt to pull that water inside the cell. I've had people complain to me, they say, I'm drinking more water now, and now I'm going to the bathroom all day. So I say, are you having the salt? Have a little crystal before every glass of water. And ideally, we should be having approximately 8 glasses of water a day. When I start every glass, I have that little bit of salt. So you spread the water over the day. And many people have said to me, thank you so much, that has made a big difference. See, huge water in, it's not long before huge water has to come out. It's like watering a plant. And look how God sends the rain, little by little by little. And when there's a tornado, when there's a torrential downpour, that's when the soil gets washed away and flooding can happen. So remember that with your body. Take it little by little by little by little. It is the best way to take it. Lining our gastrointestinal tract are villi. And on the villi is a receptor site. And that receptor site is to take the glucose through and into the blood. So on this villi, we've got a blood capillaries that go all the way through. Now in that receptor site is a carrier. And this carrier is designed to take the glucose through to the blood. But the carrier will not accept the glucose unless it comes with a molecule of sodium. I read this in my anatomy and physiology book. In the anatomy and physiology book, I memorized the sentence so I could give it to you from the horse's mouth. Sodium is the main transport system of glucose across the brush border wall and into the blood. And yet what are we told? Don't eat salt. Well, I agree with the table salt because it causes this imbalance of minerals in and out of the cell, absolutely. And did you know that sodium chloride is so strong it can kill the taste buds? Have you seen people that eat table salt? They put it on everything and they put it on before they've even tasted it. Well, no wonder, their taste buds are dying. Whereas Celtic salt, with all of its minerals, it enhances the flavour of the food. So sodium not only is required to get the glucose into the blood, it's also required to get the water into the cell. So it's sodium. It's the third most vital element needed for life. And you can get that information on the 4 vitals in any anatomy and physiology book, chemistry book, biology book. I'm just giving you the facts here. So as you can see, water is very important. But so is the salt. And again, the potassium is found in all your fresh fruits and vegetables. Something else happens. I'd like to go back to this for a moment. When the magnesium's put on the tongue and you have the glass of water, or half a glass, a little bit later the other half glass, that magnesium pulls the water inside the cell. And in the bilaid membrane that is around every cell, there's a little motor. And when the water's pulled through the membrane and into the cell, it causes that little motor to start spinning. And the spinning of that motor gives us a unit of energy. So when you're feeling a little tired or maybe a little bit peckish mid-morning, have the salt and have the water and you'll get a little bit of a pickup. So when everyone's going outside to have their cigarette or their cup of coffee, you have your crystal of salt, your glass of water. Absolutely, if you're working in an office, go outside and find a tree. Remember what the trees are giving off? Life-giving oxygen. Breathe deeply from your abdominal muscle, and that blast of oxygen, remember what the oxygen does at the cellular level? Oxygen will give you 18 times more energy. We've looked at the inside of the workings of the cell a few times, And the way I explain it, it looks like there's one energy cycle per cell, but it is not true. So what I've drawn for you here is a whole lot of little energy cycles. In fact, in the muscle cell, you can have 100 energy cycles to a muscle cell. I can hardly get my mind around that. And that's why the saying that you will receive more energy than you expend on your morning walk, because each one of those little energy cycles will give 18 times more energy if enough oxygen is going into your body. But you just imagine for a moment, and this is happening in America a lot today, people are not drinking enough water, they're not having the whole salt, and they're definitely not having many greens, which is where your magnesiums is. So the little bit of water they're having is not getting inside the cell. They don't go out in the sunshine because they're scared of getting skin cancer. So they're not getting their vitamin D, so the calcium can't get in and the minerals can't get in. And they're trying to lose weight, so they've listened to a lot of the media hype that you've got to stop the fat because fat will make you fat. So they're on a high carbohydrate diet. Remember what fat will do? It'll give you satisfaction or a satiation, a full feeling. But if you're not having any fat, you just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat. The whole packet of cookies goes, the whole chips go. There's not a sign in your body that says enough. It's the fiber, protein, and the good fats that will give you that sign. So they're on a high carbohydrate diet, thinking that if they go fat-free, they'll lose weight. And can you see what's happening? The water can't get in, the minerals can't get in, the glucose can't get in, and the body says, what are we going to do? Because remember, this is the CBD of the human body. What are we going to do? And the body says, we've got one last thing up our sleeve. We'll just force it into the cell. That's high blood pressure.
And listen to this from another presentation by Barbara O'Neill about the acid-alkaline balance.
But first of all, in this lecture this morning, we're going to look at the acid-alkaline balance. What is the acid-alkaline balance? The acid-alkaline balance is on the pH scale. What does pH mean? pH means potential hydrogen. Because when you dissolve acid in a solution, it gives off hydrogen ions. So when you test how acid a solution is, you're actually testing how many hydrogen ions are in the solution. So let's have a look at this acid-alkaline scale, because every body fluid has a reading on the pH scale. Up this end is the acid, and the reading is 0. And up the other end, we've got alkaline, and the reading is 14. And in the middle, we've got neutral. Neutral has a reading of 7. Most water should be neutral, neither acid nor alkaline. Blood has a reading on the pH scale. The reading of blood is between 7.35 and 7.4. All blood is within that scale, because if blood pH goes up to 8, the person will go into a coma and die of alkalosis. If blood pH drops down to 7.22, the person will go into a coma and die of acidosis. So as you can see, there cannot be much variation there. Now, I've said this a few times this week, that the body is continually working to keep you alive. You were designed to heal. We don't have to worry about the pH of our blood because it is within that scale. There are 2 organs in your body that are constantly working to keep it within that range. One is your lungs. Did you notice this morning when you started climbing a hill that you started to breathe deeply? The reason you start to breathe deeply is because your muscles are burning up a lot more oxygen, and they need more oxygen, thus breathing deeply to get more. But one other thing's happening. As the oxygen's being burnt in the little energy cycles in the cell, the gaseous waste is being given off, carbon dioxide. And as carbon dioxide builds up in the blood, it creates an acid condition. So the breathing deeply gets more oxygen to alkalize, more carbon dioxide out to keep that balance. In fact, we don't choose to breathe deeply going up a hill, do we? It just happens whether we like it or not. So your lungs help to keep the acid alkaline in the blood at the right level. The other organ is your kidneys. And your kidneys balance the acid alkaline in your blood in quite a fascinating way. Let me show you. This is the little Bowman's capsule. We drew it the other day, the little filtering unit. And there are 1 million in each kidney. These are the tubules where the waste is taken away. There's the filtering units. So the blood goes in. The blood weaves around the filtering units and comes out, and it weaves around the tubules. 1,800 litres of filtrate is filtered out of that little Bowman's capsule in a 24-hour period. That's out of your 2 million little filtering units. 1,600 is reabsorbed approximately, because approximately 1.5 litres is urinated out. So it's in this reabsorption section of the kidney where the tubules weave around is where the pH is balanced. If the pH of the blood is getting too acid, it is here that extra acid is dropped into the tubules to be urinated out. But if the pH of the blood is going too alkaline, then the blood will pull extra acid out of the tubules and back into the blood. And in that way, the kidneys are constantly monitoring the pH of the blood. So you don't have to worry about the pH of your blood. It is in this reabsorption section where pH is balanced. It's in the reabsorption section of the kidneys that blood pressure is balanced, that water and salt is balanced in the body. So the kidneys are an amazing organ. They're not only filtering the blood, but they have a lot to do with what's called homeostasis, or keeping the precision balance in the body fluids. So we don't have to worry, as I mentioned previously, about the pH of our blood, because these two organs are constantly balancing the pH of the blood. The pH of the blood cannot change, as you can see, but the pH of the cell can change. The pH of the cell should be approximately 6.5. That's very slightly acid. Why is that? The most acidic substance you can get is sulfuric acid. On the scale of speed, sulfuric acid travels at the speed of light. The most alkaline mineral that you can get is calcium. And on the scale of speed, calcium does not even move. The hydroponic gardener, he's constantly testing the pH of the water that his plants grow in, because if the pH of the water goes too acid, the roots burn. If the pH of the water goes too alkaline, then the farmer doesn't get the speed of uptake of minerals out of the water and into the plant. You see, it's dependent on speed. The gardener's always testing his soil, and he aims for a pH of 6.4. We looked on Monday. We come from dust, we go back to dust. We're dust. It's interesting that the pH of the cell and the soil are very similar. Slightly acid, so you get the speed of uptake of the minerals. Here is the cell. Here's the cell. And this is the little energy cycle in the cell. And the glucose goes in, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, approximately chemical reactions before the energy comes out. If the pH of the cell goes too acid, those chemical reactions are too fast. If the pH of the cell goes too alkaline, the little chemical reactions are too slow. So you see, the precision balance of the pH is very important, because those chemical reactions are happening by the millions as we sit and stand here. Coca-Cola, where does it stand? 2.6, way down here. It's a killer. Lungs and kidneys are battling to try and keep the pH of the blood going well, as it should be. And then, oh no, can of Coke goes in. Or a cup of coffee with 3 teaspoons of sugar, fairly equal. Lungs and kidneys were already being challenged. The scales are tipped. Blood pH starts to drop, 7.35, 7.34. Alarm bells go off. The last resort buffer system is called on. Calcium phosphate is pulled out of the bones into the blood in a form it should not really be in the blood, but it's a crisis. We're trying to save the life. Blood pH immediately starts to balance. 7.34, 7.35, we're safe, but at a cost.
And that's osteoporosis. The fluid in the body becomes so acidic it's corrosive, and the body goes to extreme measures by pulling calcium out of the bones to rectify your pH.
We now have this calcium phosphate floating through the blood in a crystal form. What's the body going to do with it? It'll settle on the bone as bone spurs. If you say to the doctor, what's this bone spur? Where's it from? He'll say it's a calcium deposit, which is right. What's the next question? Why has the body put it on my bone and not in my bone? And because doctors don't study nutrition, a lot of them are unaware that it's because of what I was just telling you. Some of my friends are doctors and they know a lot about nutrition, but they've done their own research. A friend of mine told me recently, she said, they're starting to put a little bit more nutrition into the doctor's 7-year med course. I said, great. Because they take the Hippocratical oath, but you know what Hippocrates said? Let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. I think a lot are being challenged because the medication's not doing it, as we all know. What else happens? Bone spurs get built up. And you all now know how to get rid of a bone spur, don't you? Castor oil compresses. Little by little, it'll break it down. I've got some good news. It'll never break your bone down. You see, herbs are synergistic. They work with the needs of the human body. And a bone spur is an unnatural formation. It can settle in the joints as gout, as arthritis. It can settle in the kidneys, contributing to kidney stones, gallbladder, contributing to gallstones. It can contribute to build up on the arterial walls. It can contribute to glaucomas, cataracts. I think that what I have just told you is a very good illustration of Newton's third law of motion. To every action, there is an equal and an opposite reaction. The Coke created a very acid condition. That's the action. The reaction from the body is to pull the calcium out, to negate it, and then we've got the results of that. I read in an old book one day, and I'll share this sentence with you because I think it says it so well about Newton's third law of motion. This law never ceases to act as nature's equalizer, setting in motion compensatory forces to remedy every imbalance. Isn't that the true cause of disease? The body reacting to an action. It's the law of action and reaction.
And on Better Health, let's take a look at the pancreas and the summary. The pancreas has dual roles. It is an organ of the digestive system and of the endocrine system. The exocrine pancreas produces enzymes that help to digest food, particularly protein. The endocrine pancreas makes the hormone insulin, which helps to control blood sugar levels. Disorders of the pancreas include acute or chronic pancreatitis, pancreatic cancer, and diabetes. And I was told when I was initially diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, before I corrected it, that you're killing your pancreas when it's untreated. So one of the first symptoms of issues with the pancreas is going to be diabetes. It goes on. The pancreas is located in the abdomen, tucked behind the stomach. It is shaped somewhat like a tadpole, fat at one end and slender at the other, and is around 25 centimeters in length. The pancreas has dual roles. It is an organ of the digestive system and of the hormonal endocrine system. Once food has been mulched and partially digested by the stomach, it is pushed into the duodenum, first part of the small intestine. The pancreas adds its own digestive juices and enzymes to the food via a small duct attached to the duodenum. This process is said to belong to the exocrine pancreas. The pancreas also produces the hormone insulin, which helps to control the amount of sugar in the blood. This is the role of the endocrine pancreas. So under the exocrine pancreas, the pancreas helps to digest food, particularly protein. Pancreatic juices contain enzymes that only become activated once they reach the duodenum. This is to prevent the protein digesting enzyme trypsin from eating the protein-based pancreas or its duct. Other enzymes produced by the pancreas include amylase to break down carbohydrate and lipase to break down fats. The exocrine pancreas also makes sodium bicarbonate, which helps to neutralize the stomach acids in the food. And that prevents the rest of the body from becoming acidic because it's putting in a very high alkalized substance, sodium bicarbonate. And once the body has been besieged with acidic foods over decades, you run out of salt, you run out of sodium bicarbonate, making everything that you digest become more and more compounded with acidity, where it begins to literally, the fluid in your body become corrosive, breaking down the body and literally beginning with early onset aging and starting the death process. It goes on with the endocrine pancreas, which the pancreas makes the hormone insulin, which helps to control blood sugar levels. Insulin is manufactured by a small clump of pancreatic cells called the islets of Langerhans. High blood sugar levels prompt the release of insulin from the islets of Langerhans so that the sugars can pass into cells. The endocrine pancreas also makes glucagon, another hormone involved in the regulation of blood sugar. So you're dealing with the regulation of blood sugar and acidity in the pancreas, and it's the first thing to go when sugar and acidity begins to take its toll on the body. So when the body runs out of salt, it begins to kill the pancreas. It's no longer able to produce sodium bicarbonate to quell off the acidity of the constant bombardment of acidic foods via sugar, alcohol, and just an overall processed diet of garbage and acidic substances, turning the fluid in the body to a corrosive fluid that's killing us. And they know this. Gout, kidney stones, gallstones, osteoporosis, arterial calcification, bone spurs, premature aging, weight gain, fatigue, pain, joint pain, muscle pain, aches of all kind, bad digestion, and tooth decay. If it's going after your bones, it's going after your teeth. It's the same thing. Then diabetes, followed by an early death. And with the diabetes from the acidity and sugar, I had a real difficult time healing. Simple cuts, scrapes, take months to heal. When I incorporated the salt via sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, the simple, cheap solution, my body would heal like normal, lost weight, felt better. Most health problems are caused by acidity from sugar. So if you're in a state where you need it, and even if not, just as a daily supplement, the right salt is crucial. Take it. And if you're in a compromised state as I was, begin with the baking soda and the water. All right, you'll begin to understand and feel the difference. Know when your body needs it, know when it doesn't need it. But also, you got to start focusing on the proper food and the proper diet, eating alkali foods, rich in potassium, fiber, electrolytes, food that is alive. That's what your body's supposed to run on. And when I made all of these changes, but the most important thing was the change with the baking soda and the water, because I was in real bad shape. I wound up losing near 80 pounds, and I've kept it off for over a decade. And the one thing that you also need to understand is cancer can't survive in an oxygen-rich alkali state. It can only survive and thrive in an oxygen-deprived acidic state. So you have to work your salt, maintain alkalinity and a proper diet, and oxygenate the body. You don't have to work out like crazy. Go for a walk every day. All right? And we can learn from nature. Look at stagnant water on a pond or a lake. It's dirty. inherently dirty due to a lack of motion, oxygenation, and salt. If you look at the ocean, it's much cleaner. It's constantly in motion. It's salty and it's clean. And your body is water. So maintain your salinity and your alkalinity. Oxygenate. Consume the right foods. And you'll be amazed.
But what affects the pH probably more than anything else is the food that we eat.
And in addition to just good organic fruits and vegetables, the one thing, well, two things I've learned. The first, being the most important, is get rid of enriched wheat flour. It is garbage. It's the refuse of wheat. And what I have found is you get your own wheat berries, your own wheat seed, and you grind it. Okay? And then you get natural oils, vitamins, and minerals, and you make your own bread. You make your own cookies, you make your own pretzels, you make your own chips, you make your own cereal. It makes all the difference in the world. The processed food that you get in the supermarket is utter garbage and poison. You can't eat it at all. Make your own. You'll be amazed how much better you feel. And lastly, one of the things that I did learn, and one of the best foods you could possibly eat if you're going to eat protein, is hard-boiled eggs. I actually learned this from Sylvester Stallone. I tried to find the interview. It was after Copland, where he lost 60 pounds. He said in 90 days he lost all that weight, and he ate basically 120 hard-boiled eggs a week. Now that's way too much. And I couldn't find that interview. It's been scrubbed. But when I was working out and building muscle, I was in and around the 50 mark. And my body went through a wicked transformation. And what I had heard was also to eat the shell. So I would just make them and eat it like an apple with the shell on it. Doesn't taste that great, kind of crunchy, but it doesn't harm you inside. You would think, oh wow, I'm going to get cut up from the sharp shell. Your stomach acidity takes care of it. And it's so good for your bones and your teeth, the shell of the egg, that if you can't eat it that way, the way I was, blend it up in a smoothie or grind it up and then make your own supplements. You know, make them into little pills and take them every day. It's one of the best things you can do to prevent osteoporosis, is getting rid of the acidity in the body, but also having this natural form of calcium being put into the body. It'll help your teeth and bones tremendously. And it's something that when I say it turned back the clock when I was eating all these hard-boiled eggs, at the very least do 4 a day. And don't worry about what they're telling you about cholesterol either, folks. Do your research. The right cholesterol is absolutely crucial for getting rid of toxicity in the body. The reason why your cholesterol is high, if it is high, is because your toxicity is high and your body stores toxins as fat. So when you eat the natural cholesterol and hard-boiled eggs, you actually get rid of that toxicity and lower your cholesterol. And you really will be, once you incorporate that with the natural wheat seed and making your own flour from the wheat seed, and eating more fruits and vegetables in addition to the healthy salt and more water and just a little bit of exercise via a walk, and just work your body's range of motion, stretch. You won't need anything, and you won't even bother going to the doctor anymore, because you realize they're in it not for your benefit. Baking soda is one of the cheapest things that you could possibly buy, and it's abundant. It's dirt cheap. It's such an easy fix, and they know this. But they want you on these medications for life. I don't even go to the doctor anymore. I can't. Lied to too many times. And the horrible weight gain I endured also was during kidney stones. They would give me, every time they would give me a round of antibiotics. And they had given me such harsh antibiotics of Cipro level that I remember the last time I took it, I put it down midway through, and I had gained 35 pounds in 3 weeks from that Cipro, that poisonous antibiotic that they had given me. And it took me years to get everything together. I was put through 2 lithotripsies, which is using shock paddles, shock waves to break up the kidney stone from outside of the body. I had a stent in me for weeks. This was agonizingly painful for weeks, actually a couple of months. They wound up saying, as I went in for the second lithotripsy, which did work, that if it didn't, they were going to cut through my back, they were going to fillet my kidney open and remove it manually, this kidney stone. And then when it did work, he looks at me and says, wow, I'm surprised you didn't go septic. And if you go septic, you got a good chance of dying. All I needed was baking soda, like a $5 solution. It would have been gone in a few days and saved me so much pain, money, and time. So these people know what they're doing. They're profiting from you, doing unnecessary procedures, and they're profiting from you while they kill you slowly and agonizingly. I needed to raise my pH with salt, with baking soda, correct my diet. That's it. The only thing that helped me was getting rid of the acidity via baking soda. And consuming foods rich in potassium that are alkali. When you consume salt, you lose potassium. They go hand in hand. Remember that. Bananas are a great source of potassium and something you can grab real quick. Again, I'm not a doctor, but this is my experience. And if you do your research, other people are talking about this as well. Try it. You won't be disappointed. God bless you all in Jesus' name.